Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're taking a pretty incredible journey. We're going from the invisible, almost magical mechanics of electricity to actually building your own tangible, working components. If you've ever stopped and wondered how just flicking a switch brings a whole room to life, or how these massive machines can lift solid scrap metal without breaking a sweat, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to become builders today, taking the raw forces of physics and channeling them with our own hands.
To get there, we need a solid blueprint. So, here's our agenda. 1. The anatomy of a circuit. 2. Making a simple circuit. 3. The language of diagrams. 4. Polarity and component rules. 5. Building an electromagnet. And 6. Electromagnet circuit diagrams. Let's get to work.
Section 1. Anatomy of a circuit. Before we can even think about manipulating electricity, we've got to understand the basic ingredients that make the whole thing happen.
To build absolutely anything, you have to understand your core materials, right? Think of electrical energy like a giant invisible river. We define electrical energy quite simply as the energy that flows through an electric circuit. But, a river needs a riverbed to guide it. That's exactly where our conductor comes in. A conductor is a material, typically a metal wire, used to safely carry that electrical energy from one place to another. Now, to control that river, any practical layout requires 4 essential components. And this is true whether you're wiring a simple little flashlight or designing a heavy-duty crane. First up, the cell. This is your power source. It takes chemical energy and transforms it into the electrical energy we need. Second, insulated connecting wires. These are our conductors, the physical pathways coated in plastic so the energy stays safely on track. Third is the switch, which is basically your control mechanism. It lets you open or close the gate to let the energy flow. And finally, the lamp. This is your output device. It takes that flowing electrical energy and converts it into useful light and heat. Each one of these parts plays a vital, non-negotiable role.
So the crucial point here is how that energy actually gets pushed out of the cell to begin with. A cell has 2 distinct ends, or terminals. You've got the positive terminal, marked with a plus sign, which typically connects to a red wire. Then you have the negative terminal, marked with a minus sign, connecting to a black wire. The cell's voltage is essentially a measurement of its ability to push the energy out of these terminals and through the circuit. Basically, the higher the voltage, the harder the push.
Section 2. Making a simple circuit. All right, it is time to roll up our sleeves and transition into the practical application phase. Let's actually lay this out.
Picture yourself sitting at the workbench. First, you take a standard AA cell and snap it firmly right into a single cell holder. Next, grab a wire with crocodile clips, those incredibly handy little metal jaws, and clamp one end to the cell holder and the other end to your switch. For step 3, you run another wire from the other side of the switch straight over to a plastic lamp holder, specifically an MES or miniature Edison screw holder, which has a small 2.5-volt bulb screwed into it. Finally, you close the loop. Connect a wire from the lamp holder back to the opposite terminal on the cell holder. You press the switch and boom, let there be light.
But wait, let's just pause for a second here. What if you press the switch and absolutely nothing happens? Your bulb is completely dark. What do you do if your circuit just doesn't work?
First off, don't panic. This is just the reality of DIY building. Let's troubleshoot it. Start by checking your physical pathway. Are the crocodile clips loose? Is there a literal break in the wire? Next, check your actual components. Is your AA cell flat? Is the tiny wire inside your 2.5-volt lamp blown out? And guys, here is a massive safety warning that must be taken seriously. You absolutely must avoid short circuits. A short circuit happens if bare, uninsulated wires accidentally touch each other, creating a shortcut for the electricity. Not only does this stop your lamp from working, but the energy takes a path you didn't intend, wasting the cell's power and potentially causing things to overheat. A fantastic pro tip to avoid this: don't even insert the AA cell into the holder until your entire circuit is wired up and you are 100% ready to test it.
Section 3. The language of diagrams. Now that we've physically laid it out on the desk, we are shifting from physical wires to the tools and universal language of electrical engineering.
Engineers communicate by turning complex physical builds into simple, readable symbols. And to do this, you need the right tools for technical sketching. Things like grid paper to keep things to scale, a nice sharp pencil, and a straight-edge ruler. Using those tools, a conductor is drawn as a straight, unbroken, dark line, always making sharp 90-degree turns. The cell is represented by 2 parallel lines, one long and thin for the positive side, and one short and thick for the negative.
A single-pole, single-throw switch, or SPST switch, looks like a line with a break in it, angled upward, kind of like an open farm gate. And our lamp? It's simply a circle with an X or cross drawn right inside it. Creating a mental map of these symbols allows you to read and sketch any basic schematic in the world.
Moving right along to Section 4, Polarity and Component Rules. Because as you start upgrading your builds, you're going to find that some components are incredibly picky about how the energy actually flows through them.
Up until now, we've just used a lamp. A lamp is non-polar. It honestly doesn't care which direction the energy river is flowing. It's going to light up no matter which wire goes to which terminal. But a lot of really exciting components are polar. Think about buzzers that make noise, or electric motors that spin. These have strict directional rules. The red wire of the buzzer must connect to the red positive wire of the cell holder, and the black to the black. If you plug them in backwards, the buzzer simply won't buzz. And if you plug a motor in backwards, it will actually spin in the exact opposite direction. So, direction matters.
And now, Section 5. We are going to apply everything we've learned into practically making an electromagnet circuit. But we aren't just building this for fun. I want you to imagine we are actually writing a design brief for an industrial crane. This desktop electromagnet is going to serve as our early prototype.
To prototype our crane, our design brief has some very specific specifications and constraints. It must be capable of lifting heavy metal, which means a single AA cell just won't cut it. Electromagnets are incredibly energy hungry, so our specs require 4 large size D cells and a 4-cell holder to give us a massive voltage push. We're also going to need a whopping 2 meters of insulated copper wire, a giant 150mm iron nail to act as our core, and of course, our trusty switch and crocodile clips.
Let's actually visualize how to practically lay this out. You take your 2 meters of copper wire. Leave about 30 centimeters hanging free at the very start. You'll need that to plug into the circuit later. About 1 centimeter from the head of the iron nail, you start wrapping the wire. You want to coil it as tightly and closely together as humanly possible, but here's the key constraint. Do not let the coils overlap each other. You are creating a really neat, tight spiral down the shaft of the nail. Stop 1 centimeter before the pointy end, leaving another 30 centimeters of free wire at the end. Congratulations, you've just built the solenoid, which is simply a cylindrical coil of wire acting as a magnet wrapped around an iron core. Now just hook those free ends up to your massive 4-cell D battery pack and your switch.
Now, when you press that switch, the electric current creates a powerful magnetic field, instantly turning that plain nail into a magnet that can easily pick up steel paper clips. But I need you to listen carefully to this safety warning. When you channel this much electrical energy tightly around metal, the iron nail will get warm. If your voltage is too high or you just leave it running, it will get dangerously hot. In a real-world design brief for a giant industrial crane, managing this intense heat buildup is a massive engineering constraint. Always, always turn off the switch the exact moment you are done experimenting to let the system cool down.
Finally, let's bring it all home with Section 6, Electromagnet circuit diagrams. We need to translate this heavy-duty physical build back onto paper.
Let's grab those technical sketching tools again and see how this builds on our previous language to create a circuit diagram for the electromagnet. Instead of just one cell symbol, you will draw 4 of those long and short parallel lines connected in a row, representing our 4 D cells in a series. Then, use your straight edge to draw nice, dark 90-degree lines for the long copper conductors. Pop in your open gate SPST switch. But how do we actually draw the electromagnet itself? You simply represent the wrapped nail, the solenoid, as a series of looping, coiled lines right there in the circuit path. It is so incredibly satisfying to see a complex, heavy-duty build reduced to such an elegant, simple schematic.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty incredible thought to ponder. You just built a temporary magnet that can pull metal across a desk using nothing but 2 meters of wire and 4D batteries. But here's the real question. How do we scale this exact same layout to build the massive electromagnets that spin industrial fans, chime our doorbells, or literally lift thousands of pounds of crushed cars at a scrap metal yard? Well, if we were to generate an example of how the crane with an electromagnet should look based on our technical sketch, you'd draw a massive steel gantry structure, thick structural cables, and right at the bottom, a giant scaled-up version of the exact same solenoid and iron core you just laid out on your desk. The underlying blueprint is exactly the same. It just requires scaling up the voltage and the coils. The power to build the future is literally right there in the layout of your circuit. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer today. Keep building, keep experimenting, and I'll catch you next time.